and say that the migration crisis that we're suffering now has got everything to do with some of the foreign war that we've been involved with other Western so-called allies. I just think that's such a cheap shot, to be honest. Of course some of it is, but I say again, there are certain countries. Have we ever bombed Zimbabwe? I don't think we have. Have we ever bombed Mali? I don't think we have. Have we bombed Gabon, Sierra Leone? I don't think we have. James is in Merthyr Tydfil. Hi, James.
Yeah, hi Ian. I got your South African friend that needs to go and
Zimbabwe
friend needs to go get this facts right. Britain got involved in Zimbabwe to stop it turning into other parts.
Interventionist pass, please, because otherwise we'll never get anywhere.
Yeah, but my fact is, right, you've got the biggest navies in Europe, i.e. the Italians, the French and the Spanish. Why aren't they policing their borders? Why are they allowing their borders to be so porous to have illegal migrants?
Well, I think you'll find that the Italian Navy and Coast Guard off the coast of the island of Lesbos are being pretty brutal now. They've got to the point where they've said, we're actually going to actively and physically stop people arriving. And if that means creating a wake off a motorboat that causes their dinghy to, if not capsize, then bob up and down, maybe that's the way forward. So I think it's an easy one to say they're not doing anything, because they are.
Ian, they're not, because if they were, we wouldn't have hundreds of thousands of migrants migrating from Italy into France, coming up to Calais, trying to enter the United Kingdom illegally. What they're trying to do is put their problem upon us and blame us when they're allowing them into the continent. Do your jobs, stop the illegal migrants, we wouldn't have this issue.
Okay, thank you. Last word on this. David Stoke. Hi, Dave.
Good morning, Ian.
Good morning.
Hi, I think that there needs to be a real clear message put out, a bit like Boris's message in March, stay at home, that sort of reclamation. A message from Downing Street or the Home Office that goes on every social media channel in the world, every television channel, a global message from the United Kingdom saying, if you arrive in the United Kingdom illegally, you will never, ever be granted residency or citizenship. Number two, if you arrive in the United Kingdom illegally, you will never, ever be allowed to bring any of your family members into this country. Once that gets out and gets home and gets particularly to the people traffickers, I think it will really have an impact.
All right, thank you very much. I think we have unanimity. I don't think we took a call and saying we should welcome migrants. No, I think everyone now has begun, even the people who are a lot more liberal and sympathetic towards people coming here. It's just the numbers now are beginning to get out of hand, and I hope that our caller, our Zimbabwean, is not right. I hope it isn't the tip of the iceberg, but it could be. I don't know. It's just getting to the point now where the carrot's not really working. There's and some form of stick, whatever it might be, might. So I'll stay with that view that something should be done for processing genuine asylum seekers on the continent before they get and risk their own lives in those boats. Those that pass get through, and anyone else who's found on a boat has to be dealt with in a different manner, don't they? I think. Anyway, we'll be back on this subject very, very soon. Coming up at 10 this morning, it's James O'Brien, but right now, in for Nick Ferrari at breakfast, it's Tom Swarbrick.
Ian, thank you very much. Yes, morning all. Welcome to the show at 7 o'clock.
It's also a sign that there's something really wrong with our asylum policy, that this is the way that people are having to come to the UK to claim asylum. It's not right.
The number of migrants crossing the Channel reaches record daily highs as the Home Secretary warns of growing numbers of people trying to enter Europe. Details to come. An LBC exclusive.
A North London council wants to turn a home into a first-of-its-kind youth custody centre, but neighbours are horrified. MLBC's Rachel Venables in Barnet.
A report to come. Sadiq Khan says not wearing a face mask on the tube should be a crime, and
it was really, really scary, not just for the public, but for police officers, for the communities as a whole.
10 years on from the London riots, could they happen again? Plus, the climate minister who jetted to 30 nations in the last 7 months, 6 of them on the red list, and never isolated. After the news.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock.
is involved in the campaign.
What I do, it creates a gathering of people. So that's what I'd like to see happen more than anything, that we can basically all be safe in knowing that we're going out to party safe and enjoy ourselves.
The First Minister of Wales, Mark Drakeford, has confirmed most of the nation's COVID restrictions will be lifted tomorrow. All businesses will be allowed to open, and there'll be no legal limits on meeting people indoors. But face masks will continue to be required on public transport, in shops, and in healthcare settings. A £750 million insurance scheme for live events has been announced by the government to try to prevent mass cancellations because of COVID. Organisers who were worried their events could be called off have found it hard to get insurance to cover them. From next month, the government will guarantee they can claim if they're forced to cancel gigs or festivals because of new restrictions. as we tip off the French then actually send some people either on land or in their coastal waters. It sounds better than the wave machine, doesn't it? Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, thank you very much indeed. Former NATO commander, former Ministry of Defence Director General. A lot of you have concerns, thoughts, and potential solutions to how we deal with this now. 482 migrants landing in one day. We're now on for 11,000 this year alone. What do you do? Nick's in Lincolnshire. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Tom. I just want to play a little bit of devil's advocate and turn it around here and just say, why don't we just let them in? We've got massive shortages of workers, particularly in the east of England, in factories, in the fields. There's actually a wage war going on between businesses at the minute. You can earn up to £10 an hour now, just doing a basic operator role. Why don't we let them in, process them, register them, and give them a job? Then they wouldn't rely on the state; they'd be paying taxes, bit of background checks, obviously. But
so we give people. Listen, Nick, we give people jobs, and the rights that are conferred on people by having jobs in this country. And the reason they've got that job is because they've managed to get on a boat, get across the channel, and arrive here.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but I mean, until we can get more people in the work, in the roles that we require, then why don't we give them a chance? Not just they might not want the job.
My point is, Nick, it's unfair. I think it's unfair on those people who are making legitimate asylum claims without getting on a boat and coming into this country in that fashion, to say, well, just because you've arrived here, we don't know what to do with you. It's too complicated. The French won't take you, so we're going to automatically give you the jobs that would otherwise be going to those people who have made that claim legitimately.
Well, that's what I mean. We opened it up and said that we didn't make it illegal and said process them through Calais or wherever, and say just go to Calais rather than crossing the channel. You take that sort of factor out of the criminality of it all. Just say go to Calais, come over, we'll process you, register you, and there's plenty of work.
Where do they live?
Oh, well, there's houses going up everywhere, isn't there? There's schemes.
There are houses going up. One of the problems that we've had is that we haven't built enough homes in this country. Maybe it's in the hotels that people are already housed in. Nick, thank you. 03456060973. Here's Ted, Tom. Great programme. If you want to support xenophobia and migrant hatred, it seems impossible to expect the public to be educated that history always shows up in the present. If Britain hadn't gone abroad and made squillions, these people wouldn't be coming here. Come to your views in a few moments. After the news headlines. 10 years on from the riots across London, in Hackney and Croydon and other places, we'll get a view about whether it could happen again. And one of the world's greatest footballers, Leo Messi, set to leave his boyhood club of Barcelona. Where's he going to go? We'll get some views next. Tom Swarbrick on LBC 716 News Headlines. Simon Conway.
The energy regulator Ofgem has just announced bills for 15 million households will increase by at least £139 from October. The benefits of having the COVID vaccine will be broadcast in nightclubs to help drive up the number of young people getting the jab. And Wales will move to level 0 of COVID restrictions tomorrow. The weather unsettled with heavy showers for most, a high of 23